It's time for the Tigers to take on the Jaguars. Are they ready to stop the run? Rapport brought to you by the folks at the Rage Room. We are going to let you guys know 2 places where you can go to get your rage out, just in case you have a little bit of additional frustrations that need to be released. If you're in Opelika, go to 1510 2nd Avenue in Opelika, Alabama. It's right down there in downtown Opelika. And then you can go to the Birmingham Rage Room as well, 2616 7th Avenue South. Go and break stuff, throw things up against walls, maybe throw an axe or 2. It doesn't really matter what your brand of rage release is. They got you covered down there at the Rage Room. Also, in case you all want to support us here at the War Rapport, you can do that right there in YouTube. We got a couple of different things, the paywall payments that we will collect from you guys monthly. But yeah, if you want to be a patron member, we got film reviews that are going down weekly. We got a lot of exclusive content. I'm doing Facts or Nah again for my members, so tap in with me and we'll get all of those things done. If you are a member and you want somebody else to be a part of the Green Name Gang, you can gift the membership. They'll get a free month of membership. YouTube give those away at random. So all you got to do is interact with the channel and maybe someone will gift you a membership right here. Also, make sure that you tap in with the rest of the War Rapport Podcast Network. We are the Auburn Express out there on podcast. The Uptempo Podcast is there. College Loop is out there. And the Just a Sec Pod, all covering all things college sports for you all. And right here on YouTube, you can tap in with the War Rapport Gaming channel in case you like to play video games. And then, you know, our guy Dustin and Dylan are over there knocking out content for you guys in that way as well. We're going to get over into our conversation about the game this weekend, and joining me to talk about that is my guy, Dave Schultz. He is locked in and locked on with us because he's coming from the Locked On Network. He covers the entire Sun Belt Conference, and that's where USA plays football. Dave, how are we doing this lovely Wednesday evening?
I'm doing outstanding. Thanks again for having me, Ike.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We had the conversation leading into the season about how this could potentially be, you know, maybe a trap game for Auburn. We'll definitely dive into that conversation. Before
11:45 a.m. ain't helping Auburn.
Ed, listen, man, I think I'm dreading that more than anybody else, having to try to get there to the stadium that early. Hopefully they'll have some good breakfast for us. I don't know what. I guess it's technically lunchtime, but whatever. It's going to be breakfast for me because I probably will just be trying to figure out how to get my bearings there. But when we look at the matchup here for South Alabama versus Auburn, South Alabama coming off of the loss to Tulane most recently. They started that game really quickly, and then Tulane kind of poured it on. South Alabama, though, showed some grit coming back in that. Auburn now 2-0. The game, I always have some sort of typo on this thing. It's not at 6:30 p.m. on ESPNU. It's 100% at 11:45 a.m. Saturday. And odds and lines, last time I checked, it was 25.5 in favor of Auburn. 53.5 is the over-under on that game. The ESPN Football Power Index predicts 93.4% chance that Auburn gets the victory in this game. These two teams have never met, so the first time ever coming up here in the Plains of Jordan-Hare. Dave, let's talk a little bit about this game and what we expect to see from this game. When we talked preseason, we didn't know who the quarterback was going to be. We have an answer for that right now. Bishop Davenport is the guy. Talk to me a little bit about this offense and what you've seen so far out of them in those first 2 games.
Well, the offense has been efficient and explosive. Right? They put up 38 against Morgan State. They put up 31 against Tulane, who's pretty, John Summerall, a defensive guy. I think last time I was on, we talked about the roller coaster that South Alabama had all last season. Beating App State on national TV in lovely Boone, North Carolina, going into Lafayette and beating the Cajuns, and then blowing a big lead to Georgia Southern, and then winning a bowl game when they didn't have their starting quarterback, one of their two big running backs, and their leading wide receiver, and they still won a bowl game when they had all of 2 weeks to prepare. So it was quite the roller coaster. And then last week against Tulane was a roller coaster in one game, right? They fell behind by 14, or I'm sorry, they got up by 14. They were up 14-0, fell behind by 16, and then lost at the end of the ball game on a 2-point conversion. So Bishop Davenport brought them back. I wasn't all that pleased with the play call at the end, but it is what it is.
I watched portions of that game, and they looked really good early. They had the early turnover and then got the ball right back. And it looked as if they were going to really try to give Tulane everything. Well, they did give them everything they could.
They certainly did. Yeah.
That middle portion of the game, it was just like, okay, well, here we go. And then all of a sudden they came back alive in this game. So they have the offense. All right. Auburn doesn't want to mess around and play something vanilla because they're waiting to, hold something back against Oklahoma. They can move the football. They can put up some points. They have, Bishop Davenport's been there for a minute. He doesn't have a whole lot of playing experience, although played a little bit last year. So he's got some compared to he's playing in his first college football game, or in this case being his third this year. McKentrell Bullock, the running back, is very experienced. Devin Voisin, I think we brought him up. He's played, South Alabama's played football at the FBS level for 14 years. He's been there 7. So there are some veteran guys on offense, and on that offensive line, they can run football, they can pass protect. They're pretty good on that side of the ball. Defensively, they're not. They gave up 20 points to Morgan State, and including on the first possession of the game. And then, Tulane scored, 33, 33 of the next, maybe 33 points in a row, in fact, at one point in time, something like that. 33 of the next 35 points, something. And so defensively, they lost their top 5 corners. I think they're all in the SEC. And so they may have some talent on the back end, but it is inexperienced. And that's why I do like the over, although I do think South Alabama is going to cover. I do like the over, and I think it's even higher. I think it's gone up closer to 55 now, because I think South Alabama can score, and I'm not sure they can stop anybody. Yeah, so that's going to be the question here for me for the Auburn defense is how are they going to shut down what has been a potent run game, right? South Alabama has been able to move the ball on the ground, and they are dedicated to doing that. And Auburn so far has been very stingy on defense in terms of stopping the run. So it feels like, the unstoppable force and movable object type of thing going on there between these two teams, because they don't, it feels like both of them have what they want to be able to do, which is we're going to stop the run. No, we're going to try to run the football. Have you, I don't know how much because you have to do the Sun Belt stuff. Have you been paying attention to it and seeing kind of Auburn's defense? Do you feel like they're up to the task? Because they're very similar in the ways that they want to approach the run games, Auburn and South Alabama are.
Do I think Auburn's up for the task?
To shut down the South Alabama run game?
I don't know about shut it down. I would think slow it down a little bit. I think Auburn is, more than a 3-touchdown favorite for a reason here, more so than just, SEC versus Sun Belt. Auburn is the better football team. But again, it's one of those things like we said, a few weeks ago, right? They've been paying attention. As soon as that Baylor game was over, they've been paying attention for Oklahoma. All right. And now they got their attention. Oklahoma has their attention with their win over Michigan. So they're even more focused on that. And the best thing that happened for Hugh Freeze was that, Jaguars made it a football game last week. If they go up 14-0 and then lose 42-14, then all the Auburn players would still be focused on Oklahoma. But because it was a 2-point game, Hugh Freeze can play the last drive or the last 5 minutes of the whole game and say, these guys aren't going to go away. You guys got to put them away. And if we get off to a slow start because we're complaining that it's 11:45, hashtag there's always a bright side. You guys can be done and go be watching the 2:30 ball game. You can see the second half of the 2:30 game. right? We're done as quickly as possible around here. So, if you're Auburn, don't screw around. Don't play loose and fast with the football, and take advantage while you can. I'm also not a big believer. Do I think South Alabama can win this ball game? They probably need some help from Auburn, but I don't think a lot of times when you see these games, like South Alabama has to play a perfect game and Auburn has to play their worst game ever. I don't think that's the case. Yeah, sure. If South Alabama plays B+ and Auburn is playing CC-, I think South Alabama will be in the football game. All right. But they can't have these mistakes that, some Sun Belt teams have allowed to happen. JMU forces a 3-and-out last week against Louisville, and they have a double pass, and the wide receiver missed the crossing wide receiver by a good 5 yards. And when I'm telling you, Ike, there was no Louisville Cardinal in the area code. All right. It should have been 7-0. They dropped the defensive back was sitting on a, what I call the pick six route, right? You're from the hash to the far sideline, dropped a pick six. All right. Yeah. And those are two, I don't know about the pick six being an easy touchdown, but he certainly should have had the interception. Those were two plays you got to make. Last week against Clemson, Troy's going in for maybe a touchdown or certainly a field goal, and we get a stupid 15-yard penalty for headbutting one of the defensive linemen on Clemson. So instead of being 19 or maybe 23-3 at half, it's 16-3. And then in the blink of an eye, Clemson comes back and wins that football game. So you have to take advantage of your opportunities. You have to force a couple of mistakes. All right. I mean, if Auburn plays an A-ball game, it's going to be, I don't think South Alabama can win the ball game. So Auburn has to help out South Alabama a little bit, but I don't think that Bishop Davenport has to throw for 300 yards and run for 150 yards for them to win this game. They have to stop. The question is how they stop. The big question is how South Alabama stops Auburn, because in game one, they ran the ball pretty effectively. And then in game two, they passed the ball pretty effectively. So what does Auburn do, offensively against South Alabama? Because South Alabama, they gave up 33 to Tulane and 20 to Morgan State. So defensively, it's an issue, and they are banged up a little bit. Middle linebacker, Blaine Myrick, he was the Sun Belt preseason defensive player of the game. He got banged up against Tulane. So did Ty Goodwell, defensive back. He's got a couple of pass breakups. So those guys may not be playing. I'm going to guess they're not playing. I didn't see any update today. But when the coach comes in and they're going for further testing and it's Monday, probably not going to be playing.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, do you risk it in this game in particular because you've got your entire Sun Belt season ahead of you? Exactly. Do you want to introduce that level of physicality to guys that you need for the remainder of the season? Exactly
right. And I think Myrick may have landed on his head. So there's a good shot that one of them had a head injury, and maybe Goodwill had a shoulder injury. One maybe more long term, depending on how bad if it was a concussion, right? I mean, sometimes those things clear up in a week, and sometimes you get two concussions and you're done for the year. So, everyone reacts differently to all that. We hope both of them are okay. But like you said, if we're thinking about it early on in the week, maybe it's better to hold them out because it's more important to win those Sun Belt ball games.
Right. I mean, you mentioned two of the things that I think are important for this game. Of course, the early start time is one thing. So, are you going to come in ready to get going that early? But the other thing that I think actually benefits Auburn in a game that, again, we talked about this in the preseason, potentially a trap game when you have to go to Norman, Oklahoma next week, and you're coming off of a Ball State game where you really didn't have to give your best effort to get a comfortable victory.
Still played pretty well. I mean,
you watched teams last week sleepwalk into games and either lose or almost lose.
Right.
And again, you had some areas within yourself in that Ball State game where you can say, hey, we didn't play our best ball here and they got some opportunities. I think it gives Hugh Freeze a very clear picture to say, take a look at how they did last week versus Tulane. Go look at that Florida game. Go look at what happened with Clemson. Go look at what happened, first half Georgia when it's out there. And you've got examples across college football of teams sleepwalking into games. You got an early riser here. Can you get focused and go out here and handle business?
So I don't know if it matters. I don't know even know if they still do this. Under Kane Womack, South Alabama used to practice first thing in the morning. They practice 9 to 11:30 or something like that, or 10 to 12:30. They practice first thing in the morning. So them getting up for an 11:45 game is not going to be anything different. Do we know when Auburn practices? Usually the SEC teams seem to always practice in the afternoon. That could be an LSU
Auburn's
thing.
Been practicing in the mornings because our media availabilities have been earlier. I don't know if it's been that early, but I think it's been around midday. So
yeah, so Jaguars, at least on a Kane, and I don't know about Major Applewhite. I presume it hasn't changed too much, but I could be wrong. But they always seem to like practice first thing in the morning because the Cajuns covering them, they would always practice in the afternoon.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see, how those things happen. And I think, again, the thing for me that is going to be important, and this has kind of been a storyline prevailing for Auburn so far in this season, is whether or not the explosive plays are going to be there with the passing game. Is South Alabama a team that's given up a lot of explosive passing games? I feel as if they're more susceptible to explosive run plays. From what very limited watching tape, but I feel that's more susceptible for them.
Well, that's the thing. They should be because they lost all those defensive backs. Again, I would be, if I am Major Applewhite and the head coach, I want to be aggressive. The last thing I need is my defense to be on the field while Jackson Arnold dinks and dunks his way 24 out of 28. That does me no good. If they score a touchdown within 5 minutes, outside of the idea that maybe they get a holding penalty or something like that, and we hold them to a field goal or something like that, or coaches don't believe these days that you can repeat 12 play drives all the time. There's going to be a drop, there's going to be a penalty. I'm not necessarily buy into that. I want to see if they can throw it over the top. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna put pressure on Jackson Arnold.
No one's challenged Auburn to do that so far.
That's what I would do. All right, because if now they have, let's not kid ourselves. Auburn's got the wide receivers to go over the top,
right?
But it's much more difficult to complete a 40-yard pass than it is an 8-yard out, right? I don't want to see Auburn playing pitch and catch like we saw the other game. When TCU was playing North Carolina and they're 8 yards back, standing on their own 10. Well, TCU is snapping it at the 20, and we're just going to go 6 yards and pitch and catch. There's no defense.
Right.
You're not stopping that. So I want to see if they pressure them, and then maybe you get a hit on Jackson Arnold. Maybe you get a tipped pass. Maybe you get a bad read. Right. That's how you get and you force interceptions. I don't need little paper cuts all day long and still end up with the same result. Right. I would be more aggressive because they are a talented defense, especially that front seven. We'll see when Myrick plays or not, probably not. But the back end is really inexperienced, talented, but inexperienced. And so I would force Auburn to maybe do something that they haven't done yet this year, although we all thought they were going to be able to do it so far, and they really haven't. So, we could be literally walking into the lion's den, so to speak. But I would be more aggressive because I don't want to sit back and just see my defense get exhausted when we both know, both coaches, right, and training staffs are going to be very coherent when it comes to, especially coming out of that air conditioning to begin the second half when all the cramps start happening, because everyone's hydrated for the game, and then you hit the cool, and then you go back to the hot, and all of a sudden everyone cramps up. So everyone's going to be very well aware of how hot it is and making sure the players are healthy and ready to play. That's why I think, Auburn wouldn't be surprised to see Auburn play a lot of guys. Obviously, they'll have more players at home than South Alabama will travel.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Auburn's been rotating a lot, specifically on the defense already. But I do wonder, like you said, how aggressive they're going to be defensively, because neither Baylor nor Ball State felt comfortable enough to say we're going to try to put a lot of pressure and just make Jackson Arnold beat us over the top. And they just haven't done it. Like, the Ball State sat back there and let them pick them apart. Baylor played too high the whole game, and Auburn's just like, all right, we'll just run the ball the entire game, and we'll see if you guys can even boxes. It was just like nobody threatened Auburn so far. And if I'm Hugh Freeze, I'm actually hoping South Alabama does that so that we can test ourselves against that, because once you get into SEC play, nobody's doing that.
Well, yes, right. You're going to need to do that, right? Nobody in SEC play is going to sit back and allow that to happen. Certainly not after. I have noticed. Have you noticed a lot of teams scoring on their first drives, even in the NFL this year. It seems a lot of like Caleb Williams, boom, right down.
Well, Auburn has not scored on their first drive in either.
Oh, really? Auburn hasn't. South Alabama has scored on their first 2 drives both times. Yeah. So just seems like North Carolina, boom, scores on their first drive. Couldn't do anything afterwards, but scored on their first drive. It's very vanilla defense coming out, and then teams making the adjustments right after that. That's what I've noticed is that even Alabama, right? Alabama.
Right down the field that first game versus Florida State.
They scored on their first drive and then, struggled for the rest of that ball game. What was that against USF? Who'd they lose to? USF? Who'd they lose to?
Who'd you say?
No, who'd Alabama lose to? Why can't I?
Florida State.
Florida State. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, Florida State. So we'll see how it goes. Don't get too crazy if this game is 7-7, with 5 minutes left to go in the first quarter. But we'll see. South Alabama's defense struggles, but they do have the offensive weapons to compete, at least for a little bit. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, I think for what you said is exactly what I'm thinking about with this game is, I think that Auburn should be able to score at will. The question is, how focused are they going to be defensively? Because I mentioned Bishop Davenport, their quarterback. He is 70. Let me make sure I have this correct. Don't want to short the young man. 76% on the season passing. Like he's been accurate and he's been taking care of the football. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions so far this season. So he's doing what he needs to do to play a counterbalance to that dynamic run game that they have. And Auburn's going to have to be disciplined defensively because this isn't a guy who so far through 2 games has made a lot of mistakes.
Right. He hasn't thrown a lot of passes, though, in 2 ball games, although about the same.
They will run the ball 30 times again.
He's only thrown 39 passes in 2 ball games because one was against – obviously, they were going to be vanilla against Morgan State because they got Tulane and Auburn coming up. But, I think against Morgan State, he was like 12 out of 14, making his first start of the year. So, yes, they want to run the football. They have a stable of running backs behind Kentrell Bullock. Also I'll give you another name, Anthony Eager. He was he's the same year as Ryan Williams. They're the same age, and they would compete in track competitions. I think Ryan is just a little bit faster, but Anthony Eager is right there. So Anthony Eager's got some serious wheels, and he would compete against Ryan Williams. So Auburn fans are going to obviously be familiar with Ryan, but Anthony Eager's from Mobile. I believe McGill-Tulane, and he's very fast, and I think he's getting a chance to play this year. Scored a touchdown against Tulane, and he's got some speed. So you got Devin Voisin, kind of the possession receiver, although he did return to punt, so he can move too. But Anthony Eager is really the deep threat that the Jaguars have.
All right. Well, listen, I'm looking forward to this game. I will be down there in Auburn checking this out live with my guy, Mike G, who's going to be on with us here in just a minute. You already said that you feel like they're going to cover the spread, right? You feel like, if you're going to bet on this game, you'd say South Alabama covers, and likely you would take the over right now.
I do. I like 42-24 is what I think is going to happen. I think all the cliches are going to happen. I think South Alabama will get off to a good start. Auburn's going to need the second half to wake up and probably dominate in the fourth quarter when they are out athleting them. But again, play loose and fast with the football, get a couple of turnovers, start playing from behind, and then all of a sudden Jackson Arnold is forced to make a 3rd and 8 instead of a comfortable 3rd and 3. Then maybe we got a different story. But in this case, Auburn is the better team. Compared to the last time we were doing Sunbelt SEC stuff, Coastal Carolina was just as good and proved that they could hang with the Tigers.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to this. Dave, you want to stick around? We're going to get to some comments here in just a minute. You good to go?
If we get Mike G in here, I ain't going anywhere if Mike G's hopping on.
He's supposed to be getting here in just a minute. So we're going to go to a break really quickly. We're going to get to some comments, and Mike G should be joining us shortly. But you guys are in here watching the midweek report. Make sure that you go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share the content with somebody. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
This edition of the War Rapport is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
The Rage Room. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Set up a session today at one of the 2 great locations in Opelika or Birmingham by visiting opelikaRageRoom.com or BirminghamRageRoom.com.
Once again, thank you to all the sponsors of the War Rapport. Thank you to those of you who are members of the War Rapport Green Name Gang. If you want to become a member, make sure you go ahead and hit that membership button. There are 2 different ways that you can get in there and support. $3.99 monthly supporter, patron level at $5.99 per month. And you will be able to say that you have access to some of the best Auburn content that's out there on the interwebs. Maybe somebody wants to gift you a membership and you can have that free month of membership on them. They can do that and get you a free membership in that way. Go ahead and support us in the many ways in which you can support us, which is
stuff like, I don't know, buying some stuff from our website, man. You know, you can go to the website and get some great gear right there at thewarreport.com, and we appreciate you supporting us in that. You guys still hear me? Check out our folks over at Sets for Society. SetsForSociety.ai is where you can go to get your team in the right headspace to be able to coordinate with one another. Make sure you go over there. You get a free personality profile, and then you get an opportunity to have them break that down for you and understand who you are as a team. So make sure you tap in with our folks over there at Sets for Society. Tune in, stand out, SetsForSociety.ai. Also, thanks to the great folks over at AIMA and Associates. You can check them out at Abel's Iannone Moore and Associates is right there for you. Let's be honest, money can be stressful. Am I saving enough? Am I investing wisely? Will I have enough money when I retire? All questions you may be asking yourself. Abel's Iannone Moore and Associates helps take the guesswork out of investing. They provide disciplined, personalized investment management that gives you clarity and peace of mind so you can spend less time worrying and more time living. Call 912-777-4128 or visit AIMAINC.com. That's AIMAINC.com to see how good it is to feel like you've experienced guidance on your side. The War Rapport has been compensated by Abel's Iannone Moore and Associates for this endorsement. Abel's Iannone Moore and Associates is a registered investment advisor. Registration as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. The information in this advertisement is for informational purposes only and should not be considered personalized investment advice. All investment involves risk, including the potential of loss of principal, and past performance is not indicative of future results. We have some results. 2-0 Auburn Tigers. 2-1. 1-1 there for the folks over on the other side. There's the one I want right there. And Mike G is in the building. Mike G, we talked a little bit about this game already. I'm going to get your thoughts here in just a moment, but I have to get over into the comments from these great people in the chat, starting with big super chat here from our guy Jazzy Joe, who just says and gives us a bunch of money. We appreciate that so much, Jazzy. Daniel E drops a super chat and says, how do you like Hughes pregame before Ball State? Did you guys get an opportunity to check that?
Yeah, it's going viral. And look, this coach is showing more emotion. He's showing more enthusiasm. He's got a different vibe about him than he's had the previous 2 years. I keep telling everybody, you can take your cues from Hugh Freeze. When he's acting all emo, be worried. but when he's this enthusiastic, it's because I think he feels like he's got a good football team on his hands, and he's definitely expressing that.
Yeah, the passion that he had in that video was something that I don't know that I've seen. I haven't seen all the pregame, talks that he's done, so I'm not going to sit here and say I'm some sort of aficionado on Hugh Freeze pregame speeches in his 2 years at Auburn. But that one was definitely impassioned, and I am if that is the kind of energy that team is going to be bringing, then yeah, you're going to have a good season on your hand as an Auburn fan watching those guys play. Darius Lee says USA has fumbled a few times in 2 games. Auburn should be able to capitalize on 1 or 2. Let's be clear. Auburn's fumbled a few times in the first couple of games as well. They haven't lost but one of them, but they have put the ball on the ground multiple times in each of the first 2 games. So Auburn's got to be better with the ball security themselves. But this is going to be one of those games, if you're South Alabama, where you really just can't afford to give Auburn additional possessions by careless turnovers, like the one turnover that they had in that game. It was a guy going around the edge for early in the game versus Tulane. He's going on a speed sweep and he just leaves the ball. He didn't get hit hard or anything. Somebody just hit his arm in passing. It kind of reminded me of that Damari Austin fumble last year versus Arkansas. And the ball bounces directly to a guy at Tulane. I'm just like, those are the kinds of turnovers, if you are South Alabama, you absolutely cannot afford. Now, luckily for them, they gave the ball right back like a couple of plays later on a fumble recovery. But and so that's a thing that if you're Auburn, you can't do that on the opposite end. You can't give a team like South Alabama that's going to be coming in here fired up more opportunities to be able to hurt you, especially early in the game where momentum is going to be crucial. Derek McClellan says, I marched at South and I'm an Auburn fan. So glad I get to go to the game this weekend. Derek, hopefully your allegiance isn't torn for the team that you went and you were marching for. You need to be with orange and blue, not this red, white, and blue USA.
Win-win. No. Derek's got a win-win. He can't lose.
Yeah, he can lose.
No, Derek can't lose. Derek can't lose. Derek's got a win-win. First of all, again, we didn't even talk about it. It's a huge game that this game is going on, right?
For sure.
These schools in Alabama, Alabama and Auburn have played South Alabama in basketball. They always play in baseball, and I presume they always play in softball. And both Auburn and Alabama have gone to Mobile to play in basketball games. The Auburn game was really close, not so much Alabama. But that this game is going on is huge because the other school in Alabama won't play in-state Alabama schools. They don't play despite what the previous head coach said, he doesn't play in-state Alabama schools. So it's just big that this game is. It's a good job by Auburn to play a team in Alabama. It's not costing South Alabama a lot of money. I presume, even though it's not the easiest bus ride, it's got to be cheaper than taking a plane. So they're saving money on that, and they're getting $1.3 million to play the game. So it's a win-win for the state. South Alabama doesn't mess around with the Iron Bowl. They play when they have a home game for their last game of the season. They move it to Black Friday. They're playing that day. One time I remember being in Lafayette. They changed the time of the game because I think the Iron Bowl changed their time, and so South Alabama had to change their time. Now they just don't. When they have a home game at the end of the year, they play on Friday. They don't even mess with it. So because they know in that case, everybody is gone because all their fans are Auburn or Alabama fans. So that's going to be a big deal. And so that the idea is that South Alabama fans can go to Auburn and watch a football game. I think that's awesome. I think Auburn deserves a ton of credit for allowing this to happen, right? Arkansas doesn't already want to play Arkansas State again. They don't want any part of it.
Yeah, I agree with Dave. Look, keeping this money in the state is a big deal. If you're going to pay $1 million to beat up on somebody, you keep the money in the state. I couldn't agree more. They've talked about some version of this for the spring game in lieu of what we're doing for spring, where you raise money for charity or help out some of the HBCUs in the state. But yeah, I think that being more in-state centric when it comes to these non-P4 non-conference games, it makes a ton of sense for all involved. Now, look, I mean, I get it. Alabama don't want to lose. I mean, you're talking about a school whose board of trustees literally tried to nuke another program
in the state.
Yeah.
Well, they did.
So,
they did.
Not shocked that they don't play this game.
They went away for a year, so they definitely succeeded in that.
Yeah. But it is. Do you remember the report, Dave? The whole report about they're losing so much money, and They don't water
Yeah.
their lawn on Tuesdays, and they came up with every reason to kill that program. So, like I said, it was a big deal. They survived it and came back. But, I would just like to see more cooperation in state when it comes to propping up schools like South Alabama. Like, if you're Auburn, you're not going anywhere, man. You're Auburn. You're Alabama.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Play the game, win it, and then everybody gets the benefit.
I don't think the G5s think there's going to be a home game coming, but again, it can keep on happening in baseball and in basketball. It happens, and it's a great recruiting tool for the big boys as well. And now with the portal, it's also a great scouting tool to see if you want anybody on their team that maybe they didn't mature as a 16 or 17-year-old, and they mature as an 18 and 19-year-old physically and mentally, for that fact of the matter. But
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully this is something that, listen, Auburn's done it every single year, so I'm not, it will continue to happen as far as playing in-state schools, but hopefully it will not be the last time that South Alabama gets an opportunity to be that in-state school. But you do.
It may depend on the outcome of the game.
Well, no, but you do not worry, but you do wonder what the future of that sort of thing is going to be on an annual basis now that the SEC is going to the 9-team schedule, and then you have to schedule a 10th game out of conference versus a Power 4. So, like, you're only going to have 2 games in which you can do something like this every season. So if they're going to dedicate one of them to an in-state school every year, then that'd be great.
Yeah, that's easy, you would think, right? Rather than some FCS school that outside of HBCU, but you don't learn anything from beating an FCS school. That doesn't. I don't think that helps anybody personally.
Yeah, I mean, so the only G5 programs in the state right now are South Alabama and Troy, right? Or am I missing something?
UAB.
Oh, UAB.
That's
okay,
3, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess they could.
Where's Jacksonville State? Is that Georgia or Mississippi? Where's Jacksonville State?
No, Jacksonville State's in Jacksonville, Alabama. So I guess that would be those 4.
There you go.
So I guess they could rotate through those 4 if they want to try to play a G5 every year.
Play once every 4 years. How great would that be?
Yeah, that would. I mean, listen, I think it would be cool. I don't think they want any parts of Troy right now as good as that.
Well, that would be the other thing. Yes, they don't want any part of Troy. I guess they think they're too close to Troy or something like that. No, Troy. They don't like playing Troy. So I don't know why that is, but it is a thing. It's kind of like LSU. Don't want any part of the Cajuns when it comes to football. It's starting to ease off a little bit basketball wise. They actually scrimmage when no one's watching, right? One of those close scrimmages, but they always play in baseball. And the softball, they play home and home now. They don't even have a series one place or another, right? That one's taking a bus ride one night. It's like a home and home Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday deal. So, or maybe it's a Friday, Saturday deal, but they used to not play in softball all the time, but LSU doesn't want any part of the Cajuns, at least in football, and not in basketball, because like you said, Ike, if they lose, that's a problem. In baseball, one loss like that doesn't matter because the SEC's got all those power stuff and they're playing each other. But in some of those other ball games, it kind of does.
All right. So, Mike, you're just jumping in here with us. You have not given your chance to give your thoughts, at least to the audience here on the midweek show about this game. South Alabama versus Auburn this weekend. Early morning kick. All of the in-state stuff. What are you thinking in terms of what you want to see from this football team? A team that has been really good on defense versus the run, been versus the pass, right? They had a game where Baylor was eviscerating them in that situation. You're going to have a more balanced team that can throw and pass, but they're going to lean run. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Look, I've been talking about this all week, but at the end of the day, what you want to see from Auburn is you want to see them just come out and take a business-like approach to this game. This is a game that you're going to win, but how focused do they look? This is going to be a referendum on Hugh Freeze, on his ability to be able to keep his team focused on the task at hand. Because make no mistake, expectations are rising after that win against Baylor. And Oklahoma is looming. And now you have a potential – you got a top 25 matchup coming when Auburn goes to Norman for the first time in college football history. And the winner is going to have a huge leg up in the race to make the playoffs from the SEC. Heather Dinich, friend of the show, said last year that 5 SEC teams should make the playoff. And I'll tell you, she's been spot on when it's come to playoff reporting. She got laughed at a lot for her picks, and when she told everybody, who was going to make it in the first year of the expanded, everyone said, "Oh, she's crazy. What does she know she's talking about?" Look, Oklahoma is going to be able to force Auburn to do things that they've got the horses to force Auburn to play two-dimensional football. And what I want to see from Auburn in this tune-up here is that, because make no mistake, South Alabama is going to be a tougher matchup than Ball State was.
Yeah, Ball State's terrible. Like, no disrespect. Well, I told you I'm gonna stop saying no disrespect. All disrespect intended. They're terrible.
They're bad. They were a bad football team. But if you're Auburn, you just come in, and if they win this game like 35-7, that I would be satisfied with that. Just don't give them hope. I want to see Auburn. I heard what Dave was saying about the score. Don't be surprised if the score is 7-7 at the end of the first quarter. I expect that kind of game because they should put up a fight. But what struck me about Auburn through 2 weeks is they've looked versus Baylor. And Dave, I don't know how you feel about it, but look, when I watched them play Baylor, they looked like the more talented football team. Auburn looked bigger, stronger, faster, better.
Did they tweak their game plan that game because they weren't able to pass it because Baylor was sitting back and they just decided they can't stop the run? We're just going to run it down their throat.
It wasn't that they weren't able to pass it. They didn't have to.
Well, there you go.
Baylor couldn't make them. And
but they came into the ball game wanting to pass the ball.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, until you start running it and you realize they can't stop a toddler.
Right, right.
The best plan for the game, and this is Hugh Freeze fighting his own demons, was to continue to run the ball down their throats, keep the ball out of harm's way, so no turnovers by Jackson Arnold, because you didn't let him throw it in weird situations that didn't call for it. He got so much criticism last year for not giving Jarquez Hunter the ball more when he was averaging 6.4 yards per carry. There are only two backs in college football that average better yards per carry than Jarquez Hunter. It was Ashton Genty, obviously, and R.J. Harvey from UCF. That's it. Those guys were 6.8 and 7 yards per carry. Jarquez was just as effective as carrying the ball as those guys were. And you took the ball out of his hands, and it prevented Auburn from maybe winning a couple games last year. This year, he said, you know what? I got a quarterback who can dice them up on the ground, and I got two running backs who can dice you up on the ground, and we're just going to stick with it here on the road and control the clock, control the pace of the game, and take possessions away from the other team's offense with our offense. So going into South Alabama, they did what they did. They tried to be more balanced versus Ball State to kind of get something on tape. I think it was a success. Jackson Arnold, 24 for 28. Here's what I loved about last week's game plan. They didn't really push the ball down the field because Ball State, both teams Auburn has faced have been so terrified of these receivers taking the top off the defense that they're guarding against it overly, and Auburn is just taking what's underneath.
I do it the other way. Because the defense, I'm not sure if you heard Mike, they are talented but inexperienced. The top 5 South Alabama defensive backs all transferred out to the portal. I try to put as much pressure on Jackson Arnold to try and force a mistake. I don't need to be on the field for 5-6 minutes and for an 80-yard drive. My defense is going to get exhausted anyways. Let's see it's just much harder to complete a 40-yard pass, right? Those are not nearly as high as percentage, even if it is going to Cam Coleman one-on-one, than it is an 8-yard out because Cam Coleman can block the defender because he's so big, right? I'd much rather force him to throw it over the top. You could play man-to-man. I don't know about man-to-man, but, they'll probably play some zone. But still, I would force the issue. That's what I want to see from South Alabama.
You could certainly try. You could try, but that's the beauty of what Hugh Freeze has tried to build at Auburn.
If you want to try and win the football game, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
I have to force. If I'm South Alabama, I have to force Auburn to make a few mistakes.
Yeah, look, Hugh Freeze has said repeatedly he talked recruiting until he was blue in the face the first 2 years. I got sick of it because it felt like he was more focused on recruiting than actually coaching those first 2 teams. But in year 3, what we've seen is, and this is my point of bringing up the Baylor game, was when you look at Auburn, they just looked more athletic. And B. Will, has made this point about Saban just stacking the deck so much in terms of talent that he can afford to make mistakes on game day in terms of game planning and calling, because he's just got guys who will go out and win. Hugh Freeze said this on Monday when I asked him about the offense. He said, look, man, at the end of the day, our red zone efficiency has improved, but we need guys who can just go out and win their matchups, period. I can make a great call or I can make a bad call, but if we have guys who can win their matchups every play, then we should be a better football team. And what I expect to see is guys who can go out there and win their matchups. What made the 2010 team so dangerous, in route to an undefeated season and a Heisman and a national title, was everybody knew they were going to run it. Everybody knew they were giving the ball to Cam, and they could not stop it. Nobody could stop it. What's the guy's name? Lou Holtz was so annoying that season. I mean, he was so annoying. There was a game before they played LSU. He went on and on about how LSU was going to put a hat on Cam Newton, and it was going to be the first time he was going to get hit all season. And, 45 minutes later, Cam Newton was dragging Patrick Peterson into the end zone, another Heisman candidate. And It was like, that was the moment everybody believed that he was real. But there wasn't a matchup that Cam Newton got that he couldn't win. Maybe for a quarter and a half in the Iron Bowl that year, but that was it. And he still orchestrated the greatest comeback in Auburn football history. You just need Auburn has been used to getting a dog here or there like Cam Newton. They had a bunch of them on that 04 team. This team, by composite star, is as talented as I've seen on the Plains in quite some time. Now, do they have the coach to get them there? Jury's still out.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. So far, so good this year.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I mean, we saw Baylor come back last week. Baylor had no business winning that football game last week, and they did. So now that ends up being a nice win. And they took care of business when, as soon as they finished that Baylor game, they weren't thinking Ball State and they weren't thinking Oklahoma or thinking South Alabama. They were thinking Oklahoma, right? Yeah. And so they did a good job of focusing there, right? They're one of the top rushing defenses in the country because Ball State got nothing, and they held Baylor to less than 100 yards. So far, they've been a good job focusing. Now, can they wipe the sleep out of their eyes to be able to play at 11:45 on what is going to be a hot Saturday afternoon on the Plains?
Yeah, I agree.
You brought up, I don't mean to cut you off, Mike. You brought up a good point, though, about Baylor last week, right? Because I think that's the thing that's maybe overlooked in the win that Auburn got in that first week, is that Baylor didn't go away in the Auburn game, but Auburn kept punching back to keep them at arm's distance. And that's really, I think, the difference between this year's Auburn team and the team that Auburn marched out on the field last year or even the year before with Hugh Freeze, is that if a team hit back, that Auburn team just seemed to slowly falter. But in that first week versus Baylor, it didn't matter how many times Baylor punched. Auburn punched back every single time.
No second half offense for Auburn. They come out hot, and then the Baylor test was, what are they going to do in the second half offensively? Well, they went out and they scored more points in the second half than they did in the first half. And they got a special teams touchdown, and they just found plays. Rayshawn Pleasant, that's just about having guys who can go out and make plays. This is what Hugh Freeze is talking about. And they feel like they have that offensively, defensively, on special teams this year. And that's a dangerous prospect for the rest of the league, I think. Did you guys see the clip? There was a clip of a guy, I think he covers Georgia Tech, and he was talking about the Eric Singleton transfer, and he was like, this transfer makes no sense to me. I forgot the guy's name. I'm stacking receipts. I have a whole project, Dave, of just receipts from people. And this he went on and on about how Eric Singleton went into a worse situation.
Georgia Tech to Auburn?
Yeah,
he specifically said that Auburn fans wish they probably wish they were Georgia Tech. Yeah. That's a real thing. Yeah.
And I was in my head, I'm thinking, did this guy miss that Keandre Lambert-Smith left Penn State and was nearly a 1,000-yard receiver at Auburn with Peyton Thorne at quarterback? I did. The deck is really, I feel like
Syracuse fans don't wish they're Georgia Tech. Who wishes they're Georgia Tech?
I don't know. What are we doing? But I will tell you this. I do think that when you look at what Auburn is this year, and you see what they've been able to do through two games, until Hugh Freeze, I don't know if you would consider Baylor a marquee win. I said this coming into the season. I don't think that Hugh Freeze has a signature win since he's been at Auburn. And but I think Oklahoma on the road in a top 25 matchup would be I think that can qualify.
Sure. I'm a big believer. You went on the road in college football. I don't really care what the level of competition is. I think that's impressive because it can spiral out of control on the road really fast. And again, Baylor comes back like they could have just not shown up in week 2, and they beat SMU.
Yeah,
right?
Sawyer Robertson is a really good quarterback. I feel like
that all of a sudden, I'll give you another example. So now that win actually becomes more impressive because of what Baylor did the next week. Whereas I had a little controversy on Locked On Sunbelt because AJ Swan ends up beating Charlotte 34-11. But we're finding out Charlotte and Jalen Rayner for Arkansas State had a really good game against SEMO, but one was FCS and Charlotte is FBS. Well, right now we're finding out Charlotte ain't all that good. Charlotte has 14 points in 2 ball games. They scored 11 and 3 so far. So maybe Charlotte's not all that hot. So we'll find out later on. But all of a sudden now that Baylor win is that much more impressive. If they lost to SMU, then okay, even a close game. But now Baylor knocks off the Mustangs. That's a big win. So now winning on the road and not neutral game site, that was in Waco. And so that's a nice win.
And game one, when you are still probably trying to figure some things out, we see a lot of teams start slow in week 1. And if you're Auburn, that first drive, the collective groan you could hear from the fan base when that first drive stalled, it was like, oh, here we go again. And then they come back, Dave, with a vengeance. And this is a different team. I keep pointing to this. I don't know if you got. I think I break. We do watch the film, so Ike breaks it down, and he knows what I'm talking about. I think we had the all 22 for that one, for this past one. But versus Ball State, there was a play where it was off schedule, and Cam Coleman just kind of came back for Jackson Arnold. He just made a play for his quarterback. He was running upfield, and the play would kind of fell apart a little bit, and Jackson Arnold found Cam on a comeback, and he sat down for like a 11 or 12-yard gain. And I thought to myself, well, we hadn't seen that in quite some time at Auburn, where the QB and wide receiver one seemingly just on the same page out there. 2 5-star guys out there just playing football, right? 5-star quarterback, 5-star receiver. And man, when you put those together, which is what Alabama has been able to do, which is what LSU has been able to do at times, which is what Georgia has been able to do, you get gangbuster results. So Auburn is a place where you can win championships because they've done it. And they've done it with less talented teams. Not a single other person other than Cam Newton on offense got drafted off that 2010 team.
Right.
So I would not wish I was Georgia Tech.
No,
sir. Because where are their championships? Show me.
We're going on 35 years for that one.
Yeah.
I was mentioning to Ike. That's odd that you mentioned that Auburn's gotten off to a slow start twice. South Alabama has it. South Alabama scored on their first possession twice. Yeah. I just see a lot of games. They do start fast. I don't know why Carolina started fast. The Bears just started fast. And then they play a very vanilla defense. We're just going to see what you guys are doing, and then we're going to tweak it from there.
Word is, though, Dave, DJ Durkin has pointed that very thing out to his defense in film this week and challenged them to say, we're not going to let these guys score on the first drive. Right. Right. There were some, I can't go into detail, but there were some challenges issued and accepted to not let these guys score on the first drive. So
that would answer a lot of questions, because again, we think South Alabama's going to be the one that's pumped up. Auburn's going to be the one trying to defend and get themselves pumped up, because they got Oklahoma next week. They've already played Baylor. They're going to be in the deep throes of the SEC. They got to get the pesky South Alabama Jaguars out. If this game was at 3 or 2:30, I guess. By the way, Eastern time stinks for college football. Can I just tell you that? I hate Eastern time. I grew up in Eastern time. I didn't realize how bad it was until I'm waiting for football to start at 8 p.m. It's just brutal. So having said that, if this game was at 2:30, it'd be different, right? But it's 11:45, so maybe that just gives us something to talk about. But if they are going to accept that challenge, so we'll see. It could be a long day for South Alabama if they can't get off to a hot start. And, instead of 7-7, it's, 5 minutes to go in the first quarter, and it's 14-0 Auburn. It could be a long day for the Jags if that's how it starts out.
Hugh Freeze was asked a question about Sylvester Smith on Monday, and man, he was Mr. Hitstick out there Saturday. Good God, he was. We were sitting in the booth, and Ike turned to me like 4 times during the game, and he was like, "Was that Sylvester Smith again?"
Yeah,
just knocking heads. And these guys are playing with a certain edge right now. And in doing it in a game like that versus an overmatched opponent, to me says that the coaches are doing a good job keeping their players in the right headspace for every game. Find what motivates them for this one. So maybe it's not the same thing as Ball State, but up against South Alabama, I think, you go out there and you issue this challenge about stopping them from scoring on the first drive. I love this.
Something. Well, that gets you up immediately. And, nationally, I don't think there's any expectations for Auburn. I've seen you, Mike, saying, minimum 8-9 wins this year for Hugh Freeze. Don't care how you get them, but you got to get them, right? And maybe we're not playoff bound, but it's got to be minimum 8, hopefully 9 wins. And you start just racking up some wins, right? It's not like Oklahoma threw up 40 points last week against Michigan, right? That's a winnable football game, right? Oklahoma may be good, but it's right. That's not Ohio State that we're going to play, right? This is a winnable football game. And so Auburn keeps on getting a little bit better, kind of under the radar right now, because of what's going on in the SEC. There are more people talking about how bad Alabama is, although they mopped up Monroe last week.
Right.
But all the spotlight is on Alabama if they win or lose, and then all of a sudden, we may blink and see Auburn is 5-0.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think 4-2 would be a great record coming out of the first 6-game stretch. Personally, every game after Georgia looks very, very winnable to me. But as the weeks pass, as you start to stack wins, if you're Hugh Freeze, the expectations start to rise. And how they manage those expectations is going to tell the tale, I think, for Auburn here in year 3. Look, he got raked across the coals for his bowl game comment. He made a comment to the next round after a golf tournament about certainly we should be bowl eligible. And you got taken out of context. This is going to look like this team made a monumental jump, I think, this year if they win 9 games. But the truth is, this is always where they were supposed to be in year 3. You lost a lot of very winnable games last year, and defensively, Auburn's defense held them in every single football game last year. But they couldn't score a minimum amount of points to win some of those games. Like, come on, man. You lost to Vanderbilt 17-7. DL probably went 9 for 22. And he was like 12 for 26 rushing the ball. If I gave you that stat line before the game and asked you who won, you would tell me it was Auburn every single time, especially with the game being at home. Now I think that these weird results that they were getting last year are no longer going to be a thing for the most part. Now, what Hugh Freeze has to avoid is he's got to avoid the inexplicable loss. You went out and you beat Baylor on the road, right? If you go out and you beat Oklahoma and Norman, remember he lost at Ole Miss. He beat Saban. Guys, that's a short list of coaches who could. They should have jackets, man, and a club, with free cigars and bourbon for everyone who beat Nick Saban. And then you lose to Vanderbilt in the same season.
Yeah,
he's got to avoid that weird.
Well, this is that game you're talking about right here.
Yeah, right.
This is the game. We're looking ahead to Oklahoma. We're coming off a big win against Ball State. It's 11:45. It's got trap game written all over it. But based on the first 2 ball games and that viral speech, right? Here's my question. I got a question for you. If you talk about trap game too much, does it sink in that it's a trap game, or do they make it more aware? Because you don't want to talk it into an existence, but you want to be aware. Don't be looking towards Oklahoma.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think you manifest it by talking about it. I do think that you need to make your players aware that anybody can get beat. I'm playing clips of Michigan, Appalachian State. I'm playing clips of Alabama, ULM. I'm playing clips of every team that
You
thought
can
they
play
had
clips
it
from
in the
last
bag.
week's USF Florida ball game.
Yeah. Oh man, remember Brian Harsin almost put Auburn on that list against Georgia State a couple years ago.
Right.
Yeah. And then
right.
TJ Finley had the one game that made us think that
he came in and saved him. That's right.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, what you have is you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to continue to progress as a football team by winning this game the way that you're supposed to. A business-like approach where you come in and you just handle business. Don't give them hope. Close the door early and then get out of that game healthy. Get the backups in and just get out of that game healthy.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing for me is the health of this team right now. Jeremiah Cobb still has the cast on his hand. Damari Alston may be sitting out again for this game with the shoulder injury. They've got some younger running backs that are talented, but, Darrell Robinson's hurt. So the running back room is banged up right now for Auburn. They've got some talent in that room, but they've got to get those guys healthy. And you're already without Champ Anthony, who was at practice this week, but, he's just coming off of that surgery, but could be back in time for them to make the trip to Norman in the next game, at least in a limited amount of duty. But we'll see what happens with all of that stuff with Auburn. But yes, get out of this game healthy. But that's one of the things we talked about earlier, Dave, is like, I think South Alabama's thinking the exact same thing, right? Which is right. We have a long season in which we need to make sure that we're healthy enough to win our conference. We can't walk into Jordan-Hare Stadium and get beat up this entire week. So if it's not looking good early, maybe call off the dogs and say, hey, valiant effort. This was fun. Let's get our backups all an opportunity to play a little bit.
You can do that in the fourth quarter. Yeah, depending on how it gets out of control. But the West is up for grabs. Cajun starting quarterback Hunter Walker is out. I knew I was going to do that. Walker Howard. He's got two first names or two last names, so it always confuses me. So it's Walker Howard. He's out. They can't throw the ball more than 5 yards at a pop, more closer to 4 yards at a pop. So they're going to have a tough time. Well, Texas State's off to a good start. Arkansas State defense is an issue, or that may just be, Green, the quarterback at Arkansas, may be that good. And so we'll see. The West could be wide open for South Alabama.
What's funny is I got over on Locked On UCF. We were talking about the North Carolina A&T game, and it was the same type of game. They got beat 68-7, a game that you expected that result, but they lost three quarterbacks in that game. North Carolina A&T did, and their coach said, "I don't know if this was worth it. I don't know if it was worth losing all three of my quarterbacks in a game we had no shot of winning."
Right.
And so if you're South Alabama, you got to be thinking along those lines. We got to get out of this one healthy too. Look, man, we'll take our $1 million and hopefully we're not spending it all on rehab for our players.
That's right.
Like how often are you willing to run Bishop Davenport in this game? How many times are you going to let, a guy who's coming into the game 70-80% go out there and bang against Auburn tight ends that are coming full speed trying to run some sort of trap zone play? Like, what kind of damage are you going to do if physically you're getting beat up in this game and you've got to go? I don't know what South Alabama's next game is, but I think they start conference play in their next game, right? And so if their next game is a conference opponent, how bad do you want your team to be beat up walking into that game when you've got a real opportunity to compete for the Sun Belt this season? I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, they open up with Coastal Carolina, not the most difficult of all teams. Then they're at North Texas, and then they get the big battle for the belt against Troy. So I don't see dates here, but they get Coastal at home after Auburn. So that should be a win. Coastal is struggling at the quarterback position.
And that's quite a difference for the Chanticleers. They were pretty good at quarterback for a while, and then now all of a sudden they can't figure it out.
Quarterback is the quarterback coach, by the way.
Say again?
Grayson McCall is the quarterback coach.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's the quarterback coach.
Oh, there you go.
So he can play it, but can't coach. He just
got there. We got to give the kid a break. I mean, he's just starting, his first job.
And I mean, I don't know if he recruited the guys that are there. So we will give him a break there.
Yeah.
All right, let's get over here into a couple of chats. We've got a super here, Jazzy Joe, who says maybe Alabama will play an in-state high school team. I mean, I guess they could play Hoover or something like that.
Thompson. Thompson. Hugh Freeze. Mike G, is Hugh Freeze recruiting Thompson? Because we know the previous coach didn't.
He definitely is. Yeah,
he definitely is.
He's got a couple players on this that he's gotten from Thompson in this last recruiting cycle. So
Harsin was there for a year and didn't recruit Thompson High School. Even this idiot knows you recruit Thompson High School. That's like the third phone call, right? Or maybe the second phone call. It's like right? It's the AD, it's your real estate agent, and the coach at Thompson High School. What was he thinking?
I don't even have an answer for that. 9-time champion says on in-state schools, when USF beat Florida Saturday, it was the first time Florida had lost to an in-state opponent in Gainesville since Stetson in 1932. That's a heck of a stat right there.
Wow.
Is that true?
I have no idea. I'm not
never
here
lost to Miami or Florida State at home.
That's crazy. If that is indeed the case, that is absolutely insane.
Okay.
Also, thanks to Jazzy Joe gifting 20 War Rapport memberships today. Thank you so much for that generosity, my guy.
Jeez.
Let's see. Most of these comments in here are lag jokes and guess where this school is located. So there's not a ton in here for us to farm from.
The 11:45 game, man. Dave, you're old enough to remember Jefferson Pilot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the 11:45.
He said FSU and Miami are excluded.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Not named FSU and Miami. All right, gotcha.
Got it.
Yeah, you're 11:45 back in the day meant we were playing on Jefferson Pilot. And Auburn did poorly in those games a lot of the time. Just very sluggish, almost losses to teams that they played in that time slot. I think this might be the only time this year that they actually play in that early morning time slot.
Well, that's the thing. Syracuse, they may play Friday night this week, but Syracuse usually plays at noon on Saturday. And so it's an odd deal because back in the day when it was called the Carrier Dome, everyone thinks there's air conditioning. Well, we talked about coming out at halftime. Guess what happens when you come out of the locker room? Because it's always a late arriving crowd, right? So not everybody's in their seat at noon, but the dome heats up and everybody cramps up in the third quarter. Leonard Fournette was like, I couldn't believe it. We thought we're practicing down in Baton Rouge, and Leonard Fournette comes out and ends up having a good game, but he cramped right up on like the third play of the third quarter, right? He just didn't. He was like, I was so hot and humid inside. So I'm used to those noon. What is
the forecast for this Saturday in Auburn? I have no idea.
I was told a triple digit
80 degrees.
Oh, I was told it was hot. Is that only going to be 80? I was told it was supposed to be super hot.
Let's see. Saturday right now, the forecast has the high at 87. So not crazy hot, but I do wonder whether and how that's going to be. Field level is always different, so it's going to be a lot warmer than 87 out there, but it's still going to be super hot and humid on Saturday in Auburn because it doesn't look like you're going to have a slight overcast there. There's no rain in the forecast, but I do believe that it's
83 at kickoff. So
not bad.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, they practiced in that. They've gone through camp in that. Dave, I don't know if you
there's not an advantage for both. I did ask, do you know when they practice? Because when I covered South Alabama, they actually practiced in the morning. They would practice from 10 to noon. So getting ready for an 11:45 game isn't going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah, they do a dangerous amount of stuff in that awesome indoor facility. But I know Tuberville was big on practicing outside in conditions more like what you were going to play in. So
they're practicing in the afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, right? Like you don't want it to be too taxing, but you do kind of want to stress test your team. And it is an advantage if you're used to playing in it for a team. Sure. But I don't know. Again, South Alabama, I don't know that they're not used to playing in this. So,
well, they got an indoor facility too, but that's mostly maybe once in a while getting out of the heat. But it's mostly just so you can practice when it rains.
Looking at the media availability here, it shows that open practice Tuesday with yesterday was at 9:05 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow's practice, they have a post-game on-field availability at 11:30 a.m. So they are doing morning practice.
They are doing morning practice. All right.
Yeah.
By the way, South Alabama practices are wide open.
Are they really?
The whole thing.
Oh, that's mighty generous of them. We get 20 minutes of stretching and tape.
Nope.
They don't show us anything.
Nope.
Wow. Okay.
Only one time, I won't say who it was or what it was, but only one time I went actually to, like the Sunday night walkthrough or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually on my phone checking. Well, I may have had a few bets in. We'll just put it that way. And the coach comes over. Hey, you're welcome to stay. Don't worry about it. But let's just keep it under wraps on, who may be starting and who may not be. That's the only time anybody's ever said anything to me.
Wow.
So, but it's good and bad because now Craig Stevenson, the beat writer, is usually there for 2 hours. I would come for the last half an hour just to see a little bit and then get post practice sound. But usually I will rephrase that. I don't know if the in-season practices are wide open.
Yeah.
I know camp was wide open.
I'll tell you that open period persists as long as the media can behave in terms of not reporting anything that shouldn't be reported.
That's different. There's like 2 media people in Mobile, maybe 3.
Yeah.
We're not competing against each other. There's the beat writer. There was me and maybe Simone Eli, if she gets a chance to come over there.
Is that where she's based, down in Mobile?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. She's going to the Olympics, too. She's doing Olympic stuff.
Oh,
she's superstar. Yeah. She's superstar.
Yeah,
nice.
The first time somebody goes out and says, "Oh, so and so is hurt," that'd be the end of all practice participation for the media. For the rest
that'd
of
be
the
tougher.
season.
A lot more media covering Auburn than there is covering South
Yeah.
Alabama. Again, there's like 3 at tops.
Indeed. All right. Well, we're going to get out of here. Any final thoughts before we do, because we got a lot more coverage that we're going to have for you all later on this week.
I'm going to tip my cap to you guys again, gents. All right. Thanks for having me on. Mike G, good to see you healthy. Look at that smile. All right. No, it's been a tough road for a little bit, but glad you're doing well. And again, what you guys have built here has been really impressive. So impressive, especially in this day and age of, I can't tell you, I do not regret leaving radio at all. It seems to be going in the wrong direction. And that you guys are building something here digitally and being as successful as you are. And people just like your product so much, they're just giving you $100. I mean,
we have a very generous community and we appreciate them so much.
Yeah. So that's awesome. I'm just impressed that anybody, can start something. Our guys over at the Auburn Observer, the same thing. Just start something from nothing, right? From the ground up, right? And what this looked like 3 years ago probably isn't what it looked like today, or 4 or 5 years ago probably doesn't look like what it looks like today. So it's really impressive. And congratulations to you guys. And thanks for having me on. All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate
it, Dave.
All right. You guys were always great coming on my show. So I appreciate you having me on yours.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, Mike G, final thoughts before we get out of here, man.
Look, man, bring the right attitude to this one. I'm looking at you, Q Freeze. I'm looking at you, DJ Durkin. I'm looking at all the Auburn coaches, and I'm looking at their ability to keep this team focused heading into a matchup they should win, but they've got to win it the right way if you want to convince people that you've got this headed the right direction. There were so many that were hesitant to put Auburn in the top 25 after beating Baylor, and they still needed help. I think they still needed Baylor to beat SMU so that the win looked better, and they needed to come out and they needed to beat Ball State in a manner that suggests that it was not a fluke. So, I think that mission continues this week against South Alabama. You have to look the part as well, too. Style points matter, I think, unless you're going to win the SEC or make the SEC championship. Some style points matter, because there are going to be some tough conversations again this year about who to put in beyond the conference champions, period. The Big 12, they didn't get their runner-up in the playoff last year.
Right.
Now, I don't think that'll ever be the case in the SEC, but if you're Auburn and you're that maybe 4th or 5th team on the bubble, how you handle these games matter. You can't have them look back and say, oh, remember, but they struggled with South Alabama at home. So I don't know if that team's for real.
Yeah.
Handle your business, take that out of the conversation, and then go out and take the right attitude, the right momentum into Oklahoma and whoop their ass. Now, I don't know if Auburn's going to do that, but they need to enter that game as if that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're going to come in.
And like Dave was saying, be prepared for South Alabama to come out there and be fired up and make it a game early. But Auburn needs to just say, listen, all right, enough of this. And shut down whatever momentum they felt like they had in that game. And just show that, listen, there's a reason why we're Auburn and you're South Alabama.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I mean, I know it sounds pompous and arrogant and whatever it is, but at some point, you've got to look like a champion week in and week out. And the conversation is starting to change about this team. People are starting to see what we were saying preseason and about the potential ceiling for this team. The floor being higher. Talent is that good, man. I believe in the talent. And as the season goes on, was Sylvester Smith a guy anybody was talking about in the preseason when we talked to defense? Probably not. But he certainly made a name for himself through these first two games, right? Yeah. And you're going to see other guys emerge. I mean, when you build a monster, 4 stars get lost until they emerge when the season gets here. But you've got to be deep, and you've got to show the world that you are for real, that you should be taken seriously. And I think a lot of the hesitations around Auburn for most people, not so much about the talent. I think it's about the coach. So Hugh Freeze has his own hump that he has to get over so that doesn't hold his team back. When you start talking about that playoff conversation, if it's a subjective argument having to be made for your team to make it or be excluded. Yeah. So
far, Hugh Freeze has answered the bell. I think he's done an excellent job with the way in which he's approached coaching in these first 2 games. But yeah, to your point, I think how they approach this game is going to tell a lot about their ability to stay focused on the task right in front of them and not look ahead to next week, especially for your quarterback who is going to have his own emotional whatever with that situation. So I'm looking forward to seeing them meet this challenge. But let's get out of here. Let's tell the people ways in which they can support all the great work that we are attempting to do here at the War Rapport.
You guys already know the deal. Sign up as a member. Your patron membership, your financial support helps keep the work that we're doing here going. Ike is going to be on the road, it looks like, headed to Norman. Have you been to Norman?
I have never been anywhere close to Norman.
We're sending Ike to Norman, guys. So you can help. You can make sure he's not eating McDoubles the whole time by signing up for a Patreon membership. $5.99 a month will get you there. We appreciate your support. I want to thank our title sponsor, The Rage Room. If you're in the Opelika area or if you're in Birmingham and you're looking to have some fun, but in a different kind of way, The Rage Room has you covered. If you've never broken a car windshield with a baseball bat, oddly satisfying, and you can scratch that itch at the Rage Room. So you see them there, 1510 2nd Ave in Opelika, 2616 7th Ave in Birmingham. I want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code RAPPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Our guy Richard, longtime sponsor of the show, helping provide all your herbal medicinal needs. So if you have some traditional issues and you're looking for some non-traditional solutions, the Rogue Shop might have something for you. So please visit them. And again, make sure you use code RAPPORT to get 15% off. I want to thank our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. Get fresh for the weekend with the Vibe Vault, not just barbers, a lifestyle consultants. Guys, check us out on podcasts, all the podcast platforms. We are there bringing you lots of great audio-only content, as well as everything you see on YouTube is there on audio for you guys to consume. Go over to your favorite podcast platform, subscribe, turn on automatic downloads and alerts so you can make sure you get alerted to everything that we drop on audio. We are climbing the podcast charts, and it is solely thanks to you guys, the listener. So please continue to listen. I know we ask you guys to do a lot of things. most of all, just listen. After the video, do us a favor, hit the comment section and tell us what you think about this game. Do you think Auburn's going to win by 20, 30, 50? We want to hear from you. And while you're there, smash that super thanks button. Again, your financial support helps keep the work that we're doing here going.
Yes, indeed. And before you get out of here, make sure that you go ahead and share the content with somebody out there. Make sure that you like this video. Only 76 people like the video. There were over 200 in here. It hurts my heart a little bit. If you're still left in here, make sure you hit that like button before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are at the War Rapport out there on X and Instagram. TW Rapport is the TikTok. Got a lot of more content coming for you guys, more conversations. I've got another preview breakdown video coming for you on Friday. Green Name Gang, we're going to go in and we're going to do our facts or not this week. So make sure y'all tap in with that. And great coverage from down there on the plains coming up this Saturday for Auburn versus South Alabama. That's it. We're out of here until the next time. And as always, War Eagle.